The fire roared against the dying sun, painting the desert sky with red streaks like spilled blood. Daniel Hayes tightened the reins of his horse, his eyes narrowing against the smoke curling up from the ridge. He'd been riding 3 days through Apache country, hoping to make it out alive. He wasn't looking for trouble, he never did, but trouble had a way of finding him. That night, trouble came in the form of screams. A woman's voice, high and terrified, echoed through the canyon. Daniel spurred his horse forward. He topped the rise and saw it, a wagon overturned on its side, flames eating through its canvas. Bandits on horseback were galloping off into the distance, leaving chaos behind them. And there, crawling from the wreckage, was a young Apache girl no older than 17, her dress torn, her ankle twisted beneath her. He didn't think. Men like Daniel didn't stop to weigh good and bad, they just acted. He leapt off his horse, ran through the smoke and grabbed her before the fire swallowed the wagon whole. The girl gasped, her fingers gripping his coat as he pulled her to safety. "Easy now," he said, his voice low and rough. "You're safe." She looked at him with wild eyes. "No, they will come." Daniel frowned, glancing toward the dark horizon. "Who'll come?" Before she could answer, her head fell against his chest. She'd fainted. By the time the moon climbed the sky, Daniel had set up a small camp in the canyon and laid the girl down near the fire. He poured water over her wounds, wrapped her ankle with a strip of cloth, and sat back, uneasy. He didn't know why he'd helped her. Maybe it was the way she looked at him, like she was fighting the whole world and losing. When dawn came, the desert was too quiet. His horse snorted, ears twitching, and that was the only warning he got. Shadows moved from the rocks, silent as ghosts. Arrows aimed at his chest. Daniel froze. The girl was gone from beside the fire. In her place stood a line of Apache warriors, faces painted in war colors, their eyes burning through him. At their head was an older man in a bearskin robe, tall, proud and unblinking. The girl he'd saved was behind him, whispering something quickly in their language. One of the warriors stepped forward and grabbed Daniel by the arm. The chief spoke, his deep voice steady like a drum beat. "You saved my daughter," he said in broken English. Daniel nodded slowly. "Didn't mean no harm, sir. Just saw she was in danger." The chief's dark eyes never left him. "By our law, a man who saves a woman's life binds his spirit to hers. You are now her husband." Daniel blinked. "Her husband?" But before he could speak again, 3 other women stepped out from the crowd. They were older than the girl, each one beautiful in her own way. The eldest had fierce eyes like a hawk, the middle one a sharp, clever smile, and the third looked at him with sadness, as if she already knew what was coming. The eldest said something to the chief. He nodded. Then she turned to Daniel and said, "You saved our blood. We are one spirit. You must take all 4. Daniel's stomach dropped. "Now wait just a minute." The chief raised his hand. "Sacred law. No man may take one sister and leave the others without bond. You must marry them all, or pay with your life." The warriors stepped closer, arrows tightening on their strings. Daniel raised his hands slowly. "All right," he muttered, his mouth dry. "Maybe we ought to talk this through first." But there was no talking. They took him back to their camp deep in the canyon, an entire village hidden among the rocks and mesquite trees. He wasn't treated as a prisoner exactly, but no one let him out of sight. The 4 sisters watched him constantly, their expressions unreadable. Days passed. He fixed his horse's saddle, helped haul water, and tried not to stare too long at the women who would soon, by sacred law, be his wives. The youngest, Liana, the one he'd saved, was shy and quiet. She limped slightly as she walked, but smiled often, her voice soft as running water. She brought him food, laughed when he tried to pronounce Apache words, and always seemed grateful for small kindnesses. The second sister, Nala, watched him like a hawk. "You do not understand," she said one evening. "You think we are strange, but we keep the law of the spirits. The one who saves blood must become blood." He met her gaze. "Lady, I don't mean no disrespect. Where I come from, a man don't need to marry 4 women just to prove gratitude." Nala didn't smile. "Where you come from, maybe, but here the spirits listen." The third sister, Kaya, was different. Quiet, graceful, she said little, but often helped him care for his horse. She painted its sides with white markings, murmuring ancient words. When Daniel asked what it meant, she said, "It will keep the evil away from your heart. You are chosen. You cannot fight what is chosen." The eldest, Tala, spoke to him least of all. Her eyes held centuries of sorrow. One night, as the fire burned low, she stood beside him and said, "A man's fate finds him, even in the desert." Then she walked away, leaving him with more questions than answers. Daniel began to wonder if maybe this was more than law. It was destiny. Each night, as drums beat softly across the village, he felt the pull of something larger than himself. But he couldn't stay. He was a wanderer, a man who'd buried too many friends and seen too much blood. He didn't belong anywhere, least of all in a world ruled by spirits and laws he didn't understand. On the 7th day, he decided to leave. Before dawn, he packed his saddle, mounted his horse, and turned toward the open desert. But as he reached the ridge, 4 figures stood waiting: Liana, Nala, Kaya, and Tala. The chief was behind them, silent as the mountains. "You would break sacred law?" Tala asked. Daniel sighed. "I never meant no disrespect, but I ain't the marrying kind. I saved your sister because it was right, not 'cause I was looking to claim her." The chief stepped forward, eyes burning. "If you walk away, the spirits will curse your name. The desert will not feed you. The wind will turn your horse back to dust." Daniel looked around. The sky was pale gold. The sisters stood in their ceremonial dresses, their faces unreadable. The youngest, Liana, whispered something to her father, tears in her eyes. Then she turned to Daniel. "If you go alone, but if you stay, you belong to us forever." For a long moment, no one breathed. Finally, Daniel swung his leg over the saddle, staring out at the open horizon. He could almost taste freedom, the call of the plains, the whisper of the wind. But when he looked back, he saw Liana's trembling hands, Nala's proud face, Kaya's painted horse, and Tala's sorrowful eyes. He knew then that no road was truly free. Every man's trail ended somewhere. He dropped his reins, stepped down, and said softly, "Maybe I've been riding from something my whole life. Maybe it's time to stop." The chief nodded once. The tribe gathered, forming a circle around the fire. Drums began to beat slow and deep. Smoke rose into the sky like a prayer. The 4 sisters stood side by side, their hands joined. Liana's smile returned, trembling but real. Nala's fierce eyes softened. Kaya laid a hand on his arm, whispering blessings to the wind. Tala looked at him for the first time with something like peace. The chief raised his staff and spoke in Apache. The words rolled like thunder through the canyon. Daniel didn't understand them, but he felt their weight. When the ceremony ended, the fire burned high into the night. The stars shone like diamonds over the desert. Later, Daniel sat beside the flames, watching them dance. The sisters laughed softly nearby, and for the first time in years, he felt something close to belonging. They said the cowboy who saved the youngest Apache girl vanished after that night. Some say he rode north and never looked back. Others claim they saw him years later, riding through the desert dawn, 4 women beside him, their laughter echoing across the canyon walls. And if you listen close enough, on the nights when the wind howls through the cliffs, you can still hear that laughter, carried on the desert breeze. Some call it legend, some call it law. But the old folks say it was fate, that a cowboy once saved the youngest, and by sacred law, he became the husband of 4 sisters and the guardian of a tribe that never forgot him. Because in the wild heart of the West, where the sun burns red and justice wears no badge, destiny rides on horse hooves, and love comes like a sandstorm, fierce, unexpected, and forever.